Welcome to the headlines. I'm Li Wei Cai. Thank you for joining us. Coming up in today's show, tornado survivors in the U.S. state of Indiana get a visit from Tzu Chi volunteers who bring cash cards and blankets to help them through the aftermath. In today's feature on the nuclear waste issue of Taiwan's pristine Lanyu Island, we find out how the locals are coping with the rapid pace of modernization. Later, Tzu Chi's environmental efforts in Thailand's Bangkok give local media an idea for a show. When Indiana was hit by a tornado in March, Tzu Chi volunteers from Chicago and Indianapolis were among the first on the scene to assess damage. They decided to distribute cash cards worth $500 and blankets to the victims. Members of the Red Cross also joined in the effort.
After almost 5 hours on the road, Chicago Tzu Chi volunteers are back in the South Indiana town of Henryville. This time they're joined by a group of young faces who help carry supplies and help the storm victims register. This is the first time the young volunteers have worked at a distribution.
They lost so much, but they were still very satisfied.
At the beginning of March, Henryville was battered by a tornado that destroyed homes and tore apart lives. Tzu Chi volunteers immediately organized a disaster assessment mission. The town is now out of the media spotlight and the aid trucks have left. But keeping their promise, Tzu Chi volunteers are back to distribute cash cards.
I think it's amazing that how the community and the country has come together to help an individual.
You guys are miracle workers, you really are, because people needs it in time of need. You guys are here, and we all appreciate it so much you don't even know.
Red Cross staff also put on Tzu Chi volunteer vests in a sign of the close partnership between the two charity organizations.
I'm proud because it's important that we all work together and we work going forward.
Pastor Tzu Chi happily allowed Tzu Chi to use the church as a distribution site and asked the volunteers for assistance.
So many nights he cannot sleep. So last Sunday he prayed to the Master and our Jin's home, and he got the answer from the Master. She, Buddha, and God.
We were born thousands of miles apart probably, but we're here today in the same spot in this little tiny place in Henryville, taking care of other people, and I love it.
Perhaps love can transcend all barriers.
Continuing on the topic of aid relief, after their handouts in the flood-affected area of Wagga Wagga in New South Wales, Australia, Tzu Chi volunteers made an 8-hour trip to flood-hit Yenda town, 550 kilometres west of Sydney. This time, Sydney volunteers were joined by their counterparts from Brisbane and Melbourne to deliver the much-needed items to flood victims. Loading and packing aid supplies, and brushing up on sign language songs, Tzu Chi volunteers are preparing for their trip to flood-hit Yenda in New South Wales. The more than 40 volunteers in Sydney are joined by their counterparts from Brisbane and Melbourne, whose trip to Sydney was at best a bumpy ride. A total of 67 aid workers departed at night for the 8-hour bus trip. The bus's overhead compartments were packed with provisions for flood victims in Yenda. After a red-eye trip, rather than looking sleepless, volunteers are ever so eager to deliver their love to the flood survivors. No matter how small their losses in the disaster, Yenda residents are welcome to pick up Tzu Chi's provisions, cash cards, blankets and first aid kits, along with a warm embrace.
And this is the first time it's actually come to me of what's happened through your time here today. So I'm very, very emotional at the moment. So thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Not only for your help, but for your love and your caring. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
After collecting their aid supplies, Flood survivors immediately reciprocated by donating to Tzu Chi's coin banks, relaying the love that encourages them to rebuild with courage and faith.
I love you, we love you. There's no one in the world that I don't love.
One of the people who helped Tzu Chi volunteers gain early access to flood-hit areas in Australia was Sister Angela Mary Doyle from Brisbane. On her latest visit to Taiwan, Sister Angela gave a Chinese translation of her personal memoir to Master Zheng Yan.
Warmly holding Master Zheng Yan's hand, Sister Angela Mary Doyle from Australia is visiting the abode in Hualien while on a trip to Taiwan. The Catholic nun hands the Buddhist nun a copy of her memoirs, translated into Chinese. Having worked in healthcare in Australia for 60 years, Sister Angela was touched by Tzu Chi's charity work and has long supported Australian Tzu Chi volunteers. During the flooding of 2011, Sister Angela helped the volunteers gain access to the disaster area.
I've been involved with Tzu Chi for 22 years in Brisbane, and I feel I belong. I'm a Catholic sister, and you're all Buddhists, but we are one. We have the same love in our hearts. We must develop the same love and the same compassion and the same feeling of mercy and goodness towards everybody, because we are all one family.
Although they share different faiths and speak different languages, the two women share a common mission.
水，不管你是井水，或者是河水，那溪水，那就是不管是名称是什么样的，可是呢，水是同样的，宗教也是一样，不管是 基督、天主，或者是回教、佛教，这个不同的名称，可是呢，共同的爱。
The 86-year-old nun says she hopes that after her memoirs are published, they will inspire more people to walk the common path of love together.
Recently in San Mateo town in the city of Manila, fires broke out at 3 different communities, displacing 130 households. In the next story, we follow volunteers as they bring aid to 5 victims in Barangay Banaba.
Walking into the community of Barangay Banaba, which was destroyed by an electrical fire, volunteers saw many familiar faces as the residents here have been donating recyclable items to Tzu Chi for a while now.
After the disaster, they asked for help. I told them not to worry. Tzu Chi will be delivering relief items soon.
The blaze destroyed 26 households, leaving many without homes. Soon after the disaster, Tzu Chi volunteers conducted a disaster assessment as well as distribute aid and daily necessities to the victims.
Right now, the sleeping mats and blankets are very important because the fire destroyed everything.
Kindness pays back, as the aid now being given out was paid for from items previously recycled by community residents.
The recyclables donated by Tzu Chi are being used for a good cause, just like now when you are being helped.
On the same day, in addition to Barangay Banaba, 2 other fires also broke out at Tondos district and Sampaloc district of Manila, leaving a total of 130 households without homes. Tzu Chi volunteers also brought aid and comfort to these victims.
Moving to Lesotho in southern Africa, Tzu Chi volunteers recently visited the Morapeli disabled home. The children said the volunteers' visit was like the sunshine on a cold winter day.
On this sunny day, Tzu Chi volunteers are visiting the Morapeli Disabled Center. When the volunteers visit, the students can finally get some fresh air. The smiles from the volunteers bridge the gap between themselves and the children. To the students, volunteers are like angels sent by God.
I just want to say thank you to Tzu Chi. No one who can help us. Sister Mary to take care for us. I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you.
The students expressed their gratitude towards the volunteers, and through their visits, volunteers introduced Tzu Chi to the children.
This foundation of Tzu Chi is all over the countries. So Lesotho is one of the countries which has this foundation. You know, the meaning is just that we have to help each other. Tzu Chi. Kaholo. Tzu Chi. That means the great love. So this love is from Taiwan.
Regardless of the language barrier, through sign language, students expressed their gratitude towards Tzu Chi volunteers. The volunteers said the children's smiles are all the reward they need.
In Taiwan's Lanyu Island, where low-level nuclear waste have been stored for 30 years, with the introduction of money and modernization, life has changed even if there was no leakage of the radioactive waste. We now look at how the indigenous Tao people living on the island will cope with the future. On a beach in Taiwan's Lanyu, the Tao people's canoes are ready to be taken out to sea. To the indigenous Tao, there are only 3 seasons in a year: the flying fish hunting, resting and waiting seasons. Whenever the flying fish hunting season arrives, tribes on Lanyu ready their canoes by the beach. It was how Tao children learned about fishing. But with modernization, the children are now in school instead, and that's where they learn about flying fish. To the Tao people, the sea holds their culture and wisdom. However, things changed when outsiders came. This is a traditional Lanyu home called underground house. As you can see, the height of the house is lower than usual, but it holds the wisdom of the Tao people. The larger side of the roof faces the ocean so as to act as a wind barrier. The foundation is made of cobblestones to allow rainwater to slip through. The floor is raised up 30 centimeters by stone pillars to keep away humidity. However, there is no bathroom inside, and thus these houses do not appeal to the younger generation. After the 60s, Taiwan's government wanted to help improve the quality of life on the island and began promoting a series of reconstruction projects. Underground houses were moved to make room for concrete buildings. Is modernization beneficial to the island's residents, or does it tarnish their heritage? And to accommodate the growing number of tourists, more and more modern inns built of concrete and steel are being erected.
There are few job opportunities here. What's ironic is the low-income class are the wealthiest here on Lanyu, for they get subsidized monthly. About 60 to 70% of the residents are without income.
Tourism is the only industry on the island, and thus inns, restaurants and gift shops are growing in number. The only postal office on the island featuring the only ATM has witnessed how people have changed due to the introduction of money.
People started pursuing money. Simply put, now people only have to fly for 20 minutes to get to Lanyu or to Taidong. What would take forever by rowing boats can now be done quickly due to modern transport. This has changed how people on the island think.
However, comparing to the neighboring Green Island, Lanyu still has a long way to go in terms of tourism. The weather here is unpredictable, and thick fog that cancels flights is a common occurrence. Prompt arrival and departure by planes can be tricky, and thus an inconvenience for travelers.
Only from April till October do we have 8 to 10 flights per day, which is about some 200 people. The boat that travels between Taidong and Lanyu is operated by those from Green Island. What makes us mad the most is when the Dongfang ferry was still operational, shipping a box of Pao lighter was only 30 NT. Now the price has doubled.
Perhaps it is due to its natural barrier that Lanyu has remained rather untainted by outside influences compared to the rest of Taiwan's indigenous tribes. Yet how should the Tao people cope with modernization and technologies as they try to preserve their culture and heritage?
We shall continue on the path of preserving Lanyu. It's called the pursuit of tomorrow's happiness. We, the people of Lanyu, will have no problem because we can farm and fish. We don't need to buy things. We don't need money. If you don't work, you die. People need to be brave. If they work hard, they'll survive, right?
No matter what, the nuclear waste has surely changed the island. As the residents search for a way to get rid of it, they will also need to re-evaluate how to embrace the future, and finding a solution will require the efforts of both the government and Lanyu's people. Taiwan's Tomb Sweeping Day falls on Wednesday, April 4th this year. To avoid the heavy traffic and crowds on the actual day, many chose to observe the occasion over the past weekend. As tomb sweepers tend to leave behind plenty of trash from their offerings, Tzu Chi partnered with the Keelung Mortuary Services Office to recycle discarded items and promote conservation at a local cemetery. At the Nanrong Cemetery in Keelung, Taipei, Tzu Chi volunteers are demonstrating step by step how recycling is done. Other groups of caregivers are holding up placards to remind all to keep it a litter-free day.
Basically, we hope after tomb sweeping, everyone can bring their rubbish back down rather than leaving it in the cemetery. Things like plastic bottles and other resources can be recycled.
Over the weekend, nearly 70,000 people went tomb sweeping. At the Nanrong Cemetery grounds, Tzu Chi set up 3 recycling points with easy-to-understand instructions that made recycling a breeze for anyone.
The roads in the grounds have been free of litter for the past 2 days. It's so much better than previous years.
71-year-old volunteer Wu Yishong is also searching the cemetery on his moped for recyclables that are hidden in trash cans or dumpsters.
I go from grave to grave and pick up anything deemed worthy of recycling. Sometimes I even look into the gutters. I'm not afraid of working in the cemetery.
He gets up every morning around 2 or 3 o'clock to collect recyclables in the cemetery. Be it rain or shine, we're really moved by his efforts, so we're documenting his work.
It's been 6 years since Wu Yishong began collecting recyclables in the cemetery, a commitment the senior sees as a way to cultivate himself spiritually. Tzu Chi's commitment to helping Thailand rebuild after the floods of last year has attracted the attention of the local media. The producers of Young Volunteers at Work chose to film one episode during a Tzu Chi Recycling Day at Bangkok's Hansa community. Let's take a look. Today is Recycling Day in Bangkok's Hansa community. As usual, volunteers and residents meet at the recycling station. However, this time round, they're also to be the stars of a local TV program.
The items that we regularly bring to our care recipients are paid for by the recycling that we do here.
Following the floods of last year, volunteers in the Bangkok started recycling programs for residents. These programs were enthusiastically embraced by residents and eventually attracted the attention of Thailand's media.
If we can take the news of what is happening here and bring it to even more people and encourage their goodness and beliefs, although it is only a small group of people, they can still do much to protect our planet.
The program not only filmed the day's event at the recycling center, the host and 5 students also joined the action to get a first-hand taste of how recycling can help others.
We use our weekends to do recycling, to take the bottles and cans found in the garbage and recycle them. We turn garbage into gold and then use this love to help others. We are creating blessings at the same time as we are reducing global warming.
Today we can see how we can actually protect this planet. It starts from ourselves and dividing up our garbage into what can be reused or not. This protects the planet, helps society, and helps bring harmony to people living in this community.
Thanks to the program, even more people are sure to help Tzu Chi in transforming garbage into gold and gold into love. The Tzu Chi Teachers Association of Malacca, Malaysia recently held a conference to discuss the promotion of Tzu Chi humanitarian values in schools. The conference was attended by 157 elementary school or kindergarten teachers.
A simple game helps the teachers have a fun time as they learn.
We come here once a year. It is a time of great encouragement and for helping us to remember.
Every time I attend these classes held by Tzu Chi, the images that I see always makes me cry. I have discovered that these things are true and real and sometimes can be applied to my own life.
At this year's educational conference, teachers have a chance to recharge and through videos and sharing, also learn about the power of positive messages.
Do you want to be a small person with a bad temper or a magnanimous gentleman? I said this around 3 times. One day he said to his mom, "A true gentleman does not cry, so I won't cry." Sometimes we think the Jingsi aphorisms are hard, but don't think they are too hard for children. Just teach them to the children and they will learn.
One teacher, a new mother, explains how good words helped her overcome the recent battles she has had with her child, which have left her anxious.
宝宝你好棒哦，你好棒 She really finished the whole bottle. This is what I feel. I thank my principal. I thank her very much. She teach me how to say good words.
157 teachers attended the day-long conference, during which they not only learned how to use good words in their lives, but also realized once again the importance of humanitarian education.
150 former Tzu Chi collegiate youths recently returned to Taiwan's Hualien for a workshop to share their thoughts on how to continue with service work even long after college. We'll leave you with these images. Thank you for watching Dire Headlines. Goodbye.